to you all that are tuned in today to listen to today's webinar. This is actually a part of a series of webinars that we've run in the past, which have covered sales and marketing, social media, health and wellbeing, and finance. So I'm Narinder Multani, account manager here at the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce, and today I have with me Jeremy Moore from Riddlebox, who's one of the co-founders for the company. So I'm excited to be here today as part of today's session, which will focus on the lazy brain. We are working in partnership on this webinar with Riddlebox and have Jeremy Moore, as I've mentioned at the beginning, to host the webinar today. I'm going to hand you over to Jeremy, who will introduce himself and his company, and we'll begin hosting the webinar with you. So thank you once again for tuning in today. So yeah, over to Jeremy.
Narinder, thank you very much. Can I just start the morning by saying welcome everybody, but also if you want to ask questions, please feel free to ask them at any time, and I'll try and answer them as we go along, because I think the thought of me speaking for 1 hour to answer questions at the end is just too depressing for me to cope with on a Tuesday morning. So please get involved and I'll answer them as we go along. Narinder, you asked me to start with a little bit about myself, which is always a slide I hate, because that's why I buried it further in the slide deck, but you've brought it to the front, so here we go. My career was in private equity, which frankly I didn't massively enjoy, but in my spare time I was a rowing coach and was fortunate enough to represent Great Britain with the junior team. I finished my life in the city at sort of around 1998, where I went to do a full-time MBA and dedicate myself to consultancy and changing the world. That's it, basically, Narinder, changing the world. Okay. I'm a father of two, a keen skydiver. Now, the only reason I put the skydiving bit in there is to provoke, I mean, it's true, I didn't make that up.
Okay.
Is to provoke a bit of interest, and also it makes a point I come to later about challenging ourselves and the lazy brain, because the lazy brain, left its own devices, would never choose to jump out of a plane. Why would you? And I'll be answering that later.
Okay, excellent.
Well, would you?
Yes.
You would jump out of a plane?
No, I wouldn't, never. I've got a fear of heights, and that's something I wouldn't ever do. So
well,
no.
you see, you could, but we'll come to that later.
But it depends on when you mean jump out of a plane. Is it one of those, sports that you're involved in? But just generally, if I wanted to jump out of a plane, I wouldn't do it.
No, I do have a parachute. It is a sport.
That's it. Okay.
I mean, I've done it a few hundred times, and it's something I do. And I'm a massive motorcycle fan. In my younger days, I had sports bikes, but now I ride a 25-year-old fat, lazy Harley Davidson.
Oh, wow.
It's really nice. You should.
Excellent.
Maybe not skydiving bikes, maybe not. I founded Riddlebox with my colleague Ram Ragban, who's actually in the room. I've asked him not to speak because he's far cleverer than me, and he'll make me look stupid. And we came together basically because we're two frustrated corporate executives who got disillusioned with the world, the way people were treated, and the lack of productivity we saw in organizations, and basically the amount of wasted human capital. That was basically it. And we thought we could do a better job and expose the world for what it is in a constructive way, and change the way we treat each other in business and in work. But that's actually a different subject to the one we're talking about. Okay. But that really covers my sort of mission, is to basically, I suppose, release the potential of human capital. I think that's what Ram and I are together for, in not just individually, but organizations. What we're going to be talking about today is individually. But let's go on to that. I hope everyone can hear us when you don't get questions.
Yes, I've just got some feedback saying that we can be heard loud and clear, so that's great. Thank you. Good.
Whoever that was, you win the Thames Valley Balaclava Helmet Prize. Right. What are we going to do in the next hour? I'm going to suggest, looking at empirical evidence, there are flaws in assumptions we've made about our brains. And these are massive flaws that are glaringly obvious. I want to look at the brain's capacity for paternation. I can never say that word. And how sometimes this isn't very helpful and sometimes it is. I'm going to look at our subconscious and how it drives our behavior. But also, really, the conclusion is coming to this thing called choice theory. And at the end, I'm going to give some tips on how this all hangs together. So that's what we're going to cover in the next hour. Any questions, Narinda?
No, not from me. Anybody listening live, if you've got any questions, please feel free to send them across, and then Jeremy will answer them as they come through.
Right, let's get on. Here's the paradox. There's this massive assumption we all want to achieve great things. Yeah?
Yeah, of course.
That we all want to be fit and healthy. Fair enough?
Yes.
Why wouldn't you want to be? And that drugs are bad. Yeah, they should be avoided. And nobody particularly wants to be overweight. That would be the no one would, it would be difficult to refute that slide, wouldn't it?
That's right, yeah.
But but there's a paradox, which I want to come on to. How many of us really achieve our potential? If you're really honest, how many people can look in the mirror and say, you know, I've really lived up to everything I was capable of? And when you look at something like well-being and mental health, well, well-being's never been a bigger issue than it is currently. Productivity in the workplace has not improved across Europe in the last 2 decades. And there's very little evidence that the first sort of objectives are really being met. Fair enough?
That's right, yeah. Okay.
Because if you look around, why aren't we all fit and healthy? Why is obesity on the increase? Why is physical exercise in the decline? Take, for example, an England cricket team who just won the World Cup. Cricket as a sport's been in decline. Yet now we're all heroes. Hopefully we'll see that reverse. So you see, the evidence doesn't match the claim. You see my point?
Yeah.
I mean, but this is a key point, because if we all want these things, why are they not being delivered? Why aren't we achieving them? What's getting in the way?
Just our busy lifestyles, isn't it?
Well, no, it's more than that. The truth is, we don't all want to be amazing. We say we do because you think that's the right answer, but it's just not true. Because the brain is lazy. We don't all want to look incredible, otherwise we would. I mean, how often do you see people walking around, you know, hair all over the place, scruffy? If they really want to be, it's not hard, but they don't. In fact, the vast majority of us are average. This must be true. This all came about because I was on Facebook a few years ago, and I saw this book being advertised saying, the amazing you, the incredible you, there's something amazing about you within, sort of, you know, the sort of thing I mean.
Yeah.
And I looked at that title and I thought, well, why aren't we all amazing? Well, then what piece of data are we missing? And the truth is, we're all average. Mathematically, that's got to be true. Had we all summited Everest, that would be the average. Do you see my point?
Yeah.
And to be amazing is an outlier. So 80% of the population fall into this whole umbrella of actually that's the norm. And we should accept that that's probably good enough. And actually being a bit better is a more realistic achievement than suggesting you're going to be an Olympic gold medalist. And that's why these books on self-improvement, self-help, dark books, they just don't work. They work occasionally, don't get me wrong. But I was at a conference the other day and I said, who here in this room has got a self-help book? Narinda, let me ask you, have you got anywhere in your library a better managerial book, a self-help book, and self-improvement? None at all. No. Not one book on how to be a better you.
No, and I haven't even considered getting one. So.
Well, that's brilliant. Yeah. But you're rare. Nearly every hand went up that someone's got something about, you know, the 7 habits of effective people, or the something. Yeah, you're considering. Have you got that?
I'm trying to think. There was loads of books I've got, and then obviously, you know, preparing for, you know, before I was going to start here, I bought loads of books as well in terms of, you know, the questions I was going to be asked and how to overcome those, and you know, something that you've just mentioned now. So I don't think I've got one specifically, you know, is
but the vast majority of managers have a book on, you know, being a better leader, being a better manager, the 7 habits of effective, that sort of book. Good is the enemy of great, Jim Collins. A lot of people have these sorts of books. And I said, so every hand went up. Then I said, okay, hands up. Who's opened that book in the last month? No hands went up. Yeah. And that's the point, that they don't, all these, you know, the Tony Robbins, the Jim Collins, the Simon Sinek's, these are a great idea, but they just don't stick. And they don't stick because the gravitational pull in our head, in our mind, is to go back to what we know and go back to being average. That's it.
Okay.
Now, this sounds a bit depressing, but trust me, it gets better as we go along. It has got a happy ending, all of this. Okay. You're looking at me doubtfully.
No, no, not at all.
Okay, So that's a bit of data we're missing. Now, a friend of mine was a guy called Tony Buzan, who sadly died only a few weeks ago. And yeah, and he was a good friend of mine. I've known him for like 40 years. And we used to have this debate because he used to always talk about how powerful the brain was. And I used to arm wrestle when I said, well, I think it's quite lazy. He said, no, it's not. It's incredibly powerful. I said, no, but look at the evidence, Tony. Yours isn't lazy. A lot of people who work with you aren't lazy, but the majority of people don't actually want to do anything particularly different than they do every single day. It's what we call the hypnotic paradox. The mind is drawn to the different, but it comes back to the familiar. Anyway, so what I'm saying is the brain is very, very powerful, untapped in its power. Here's an exercise for you.
Okay.
This isn't embarrassing. Could you imagine, now, in fact, this is a challenge to everybody listening, all of our 2 listeners. This is the challenge. Can you imagine in your mind's eye, in your imagination, an empty room with a coffee table in the middle with a glass top?
Okay.
Can you do that?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Now, could you imagine an orange sitting in the middle of that coffee table?
Yeah.
Just like that, you could, yeah. In the movie in your head.
On a glass table.
Yeah, on a glass table.
Yeah, an orange. Okay. Yeah.
Can you lift that orange in your mind's eye up by 3 feet? So it's hovering in space.
I could. Yeah.
Yeah, you
could.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then just lower the orange back onto the glass table.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, what you've just done is demonstrate the power of the brain. There isn't a supercomputer in the world powerful enough to do what you've just done.
Right.
To randomly select an image and randomly, instantly, without any preparation, create a whole movie in your head of an orange in 3-dimensional, going to space, coming back onto a glass table. Now, all the supercomputers in the world, you can load the let's load the coffee table orange program. It would take time. You could do it absolutely instantly, without hesitation. That's how powerful the brain is. It can do it completely randomly. And I bet 90% of the listeners would have been able to achieve the same thing. There are a few people not very good at visualization that wouldn't have been able to do that.
Okay.
I mean, doesn't that stagger you even a tiny bit? That nothing could do what you've just done other than the human brain. Right.
Okay.
So that's very good. Well, that proves the point of the power, but I'm going to come on to it being lazy. Because what the brain does, it seeks patterns that it builds into subconscious behavior. So well, you shouldn't be the only person in the room. That's right. No, I'm going to pick on you. So if I stick my hand out like this.
Okay.
So your temptation, or you thinking,
I was going to stick mine out.
You want to shake hands.
Yeah.
Now, I was just sticking my hand, and you know we're mucky around. But your brain saying, oh, I recognize that pattern. That's the handshaking pattern.
Yeah.
I must say.
Exactly.
Now, do you drive a car?
I do.
Have you ever driven down a road and not remembered 2 or 3 miles of the journey you've just taken? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, it's happening all the time.
Don't tell me that. I'm gonna say, look, it's happened very, very occasionally.
It has. Because I'm a person that I get quite anxious when I'm driving. And if I'm going out of the area and somewhere I haven't been to, then you just follow the sat nav, don't you? And you just say, take me to the place I need to get to. And then the route that you've taken, I don't actually consider the route I've taken. I just think, just carry on, just follow the sat nav. So yeah. So
you put trust in that. There'll been times when you've gone down a familiar road.
Familiar road, yeah.
Yeah, and again, you don't remember, but I guarantee you, had a child run out in front of you, or no, you'd have been perfectly safe.
Okay.
Because what happened is the brain has seen the pattern. Oh, I know this road. Narinder, you don't have to think about things. I've got this one covered. And so your subconscious took over, and so you could think consciously about things like what I'm going to eat when I get home.
Oh, yeah.
Have I missed the episode of Love Island?
That is so true. When I'm driving home, I've got so many thoughts in my head. So yeah, I'm going to go home. I'm going to, have my lunch. Then I have to prepare myself to, go and pick up my daughter from school.
Yeah, and you're driving a 1-ton vehicle that could kill somebody. But no, I'm reassuring you this is absolutely fine. The point is, you see, the subconscious took over. It saw the patterns. It saw because arguably you can only think consciously of 7 things at any one time, plus or minus 2. I can think of thousands of things. I can multitask. Well, just have a go. Just think, what am I going to do when we go off air? What's my next meeting? And we've only done 2, and you'll probably get already thinking, oh my God, I'm tripping up over myself already.
That's right, yeah.
So that's the point. The vast majority of our behaviours and the things we do on a daily basis are done subconsciously.
That's right.
And that's the point. Some of those subconscious patterns may not be very helpful, but we struggle to change. You know, just fold your arms for a second. This is great for radio, by the way.
Okay.
it should be a television. Now fold them the other way around. You didn't, that's the same way around.
Oh God, now you're... I wish you could see this, guys.
How's that feel?
Yeah, that's good, comfortable.
Now go back to where you were.
Go that way.
The point is, changing anything feels a bit odd.
It does, yeah.
You know, if you put your watch on the other hand, it'll suddenly feel awkward.
Oh yeah, definitely, because I always have mine on the right, and if I put it on the left, it just wouldn't feel right.
Now, the reason for that is the nerves in your arm have become habituated. It's got so used to it, it stops sending the signal that the watch is there. You can probably barely ever feel it. So this is this is my whole point, that the vast majority of what we've done is done on a subconscious level, and once the pattern's been set, the brain doesn't like to change it. It resists change because it's lazy.
That's right, yeah.
And
it's so true.
At least I've got one convert.
It's so true.
It is, because people think, oh no, I can do a thing. No, you can't. Once it's set, once it's cast in stone, it's very. I mean, I bet you've got all. You know, it's like when you jump out of bed. Do you clean your teeth then shower, or shower then clean your teeth?
Clean my teeth and then shower.
Exactly.
I've got that fixed routine.
Exactly.
And you're right. It is lazy brain. I don't think I could actually change that.
Well, you could, but it would be so awkward. It would feel so.
Yeah.
Because
that pattern I've got in place, so I'm following that on a daily basis.
I make a cup of coffee first thing before I do anything, and it just feels weird. My day's ruined if I don't follow that pattern, and that's the point. And these are trivial. I'm just using these as trivial examples, a bit of fun that hopefully any one of our listeners can identify with. Saying, yeah, that is me. Gosh, I never realised. Yeah, I always clean my teeth first, or I always clean my teeth last, or I do this, or I do that, and I always put my shoes on only, at the bottom of the stairs, or in the,
That's so true.
You always put them on the same place. You follow, and when you get into your car, do you put your seatbelt on first and start the engine, or start the engine and put your seatbelt on?
No, I start the engine.
You start the engine first.
Yeah, I think I shouldn't be saying this, and I slightly reversed out the driveway, and then I put my seatbelt on.
But you see, you already now know. You even reverse, and then you go through the ritual.
Right. Yes.
This isn't a therapy session. This is a webinar. But I know I'm labouring a point, but this is a really important point.
Yeah, it's a good point.
The vast majority of us have loads of rituals and habits and patterns in our day which we follow, which are no harm to us at all, but we just do them. And if I asked you to change those patterns,
that's a very good point.
You would find it very, very hard.
That's right, yes. And frustrating.
Oh, you've got to be. but the thing is, once you change it long enough, once a new pattern has been set, that's the pattern.
That's right.
So it means that, so this is what I mean. So a lot of the stuff's going on subconsciously. And so what the next one I want to make is, whilst the brain is very lazy, it's hardwired to do the following things. And this is one of my pet hates. If you were cold, what would you do?
Put an extra layer on, maybe.
Of course you would.
Put the heating up.
And if you're hungry,
go and find something to eat.
Yes, because one of the things I hate when people say you must get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Why
would you possibly want to get out of your comfort zone? Your brain is designed to keep you comfortable.
That's right. Yeah.
Some people say, "Well, get out of your comfort zone." Well, why would I want to do that? It's called a comfort zone for a reason, because it's comfortable. So you're hardwired to keep warm, keep fed, and ultimately to reproduce and keep the human race going. That's what the brain is hardwired to do.
Okay, interesting.
There you go. So that's basically the underpinning thought about why the brain is lazy. So look, if the brain was left to its own devices, it would not go through the hardship of climbing Everest. There was a time when 1 in 6 climbers died climbing Everest. Why would you go and do something with the odds so stacked against you? And the chance of losing fingers and bits and bobs and frostbite is so high. Why would you try and run 100 meters under 10 seconds? Yet there are several hundred athletes in the world that can actually achieve that. It wouldn't sail around the world single-handedly and exposed to cold, risk, danger, loneliness. jump out of planes. That's why I mentioned the skydiving thing. When you actually think about it, you're 2.5 miles up, you're 13,000 feet. And I do this with my wife.
Okay.
And it's not a sort of attempt at suicide where you chicken out every single time. It's a laugh.
But if you've got fear of heights, then
I don't like going up ladders. But when you're 2.5 miles up, it's not the same. It's like jumping onto Google Maps. But my point is, why would you? Rationally, it's such a mad thing to do. You're plummeting to, unless your equipment is, works. There's no climbing back. There's no nursery slope. There's no sort of clinker boats. There's no sort of comfortable way. It is, gravity is no respecter of lack of ability.
Do you do this regularly?
Yes, most weekends. So all of these acts of hardship and self-sacrifice are bonkers, but we do them. And why is that? We do it because we can override our lazy brain. And that is the key thing, is we're not sentenced, we're not victims, we're not prisoners of the lazy brain. Far from it. It's there designed to make our life comfortable and easy. But sometimes we get a purpose, we get a new inspiration, something in us wants to achieve more, to do something with ourselves, to become a better mum, to become a better cook, a better dancer, something thinks, you know what, I want to climb out of this sort of convenient trance that my brain has designed for me and do something special. And that's what I mean by overcoming the lazy brain. We do have a thing called choice. Now, see, I know when this started, it probably sounded a bit sort of you're sentenced to being lazy. I'm not saying that at all. Your brain is designed to be efficient and reduce your cognitive strain. But occasionally, if you want to lose weight, if you want to be amazing, if you want to be more productive, if you want to be a better partner, parent, or whatever, it has to be a choice. And that's the key thing, that all of us have something incredibly special, and that's called free will. And a lot of philosophers argue that we don't have free will, and life is destined, and you're in for the ride. And I just don't believe that. I do believe we all have free will, but it means we have to exercise it. It's a muscle that will weaken without exercise.
Okay.
Yeah, you like that bit, isn't it? Yeah, deep point. We are the author of our own destiny. I once saw a great poster in London that said, "One day your life will flash before you. Make sure it's worth watching." And I think that's very true. And what's gone before doesn't need to define us. Right. And then I put this lovely quote: "I learn from the past, but dream of the future, for that's where I choose to live." Any questions, anybody? All we've got.
Yeah, please do feel free to send through your questions, and as we mentioned at the beginning, we'll answer them as Jeremy goes along with this webinar.
Okay. So, Narinder, does this all make sense?
It does, yes.
Does it all stack up?
Of course, yeah.
So again, you can see that I'm basically saying that this model of comfortness, which we're designed for survival and convenience, is great. Nothing wrong with that. But we need to sort of rev things up a little bit if we choose to. Okay.
Okay.
So how can we improve performance? It really starts with three. The first thing it starts with is emotional awareness, because most of us rarely are aware of the emotion we're currently in. Just think about it for a second. How often do you go through your day thinking, "Oh, I was a bit happy, I was a bit annoyed, I was curious, I was confused, I was passionate, I was excited, I was giggly"? How do you ever think about it?
Occasionally.
Occasionally. But very often we go from meeting to meeting to meeting, tumbling through our day, taking the negative emotion of one meeting into another meeting, and the positive emotion of that into, and it's like a tsunami through the day. And we get to the end of the day and we're exhausted. And we never stop.
That's right, yeah.
So it starts with emotional awareness.
It depends on what you're doing, how you start your day.
Well, here's an exercise. Right? Here are some tips, right? You've got a pad of paper there. Just try this for 3 days. Draw a line down the margin on the side,
On the side?
Yeah, on the side there.
Okay.
And as you go through your day, my challenge to you, every now and then in your meeting, whatever, is just stop. And this is, by the way, everyone should do this. Get a piece of, when you're going through your day, just every now and then check in with yourself and think, what emotion am I currently experiencing? Is it confusion? Is it bored? Is it excited? And just write it down in the margin, just whatever it is. You have to write it in front of, in case you'll be thinking, if you write bored, I'll be insulted.
No, bored, that hardly ever happens because there's just so much to do. There's so much to do.
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. There's so much to cramp in one day. So bored would definitely not be on this list.
Okay, fine. But just make a note for 3 days. Just if you get 10 or 12 emotions in a day, just make a list through your day of how many you felt.
Okay.
So that's the emotional awareness. Now, I'm a great believer in this thing called think with ink. So by writing it down, you'll see in that meeting, I was a bit distracted. I was a bit whatever. And I guarantee you, most people will struggle to actually check in and realize what it is. But if you achieve that bit, it's then about emotional literacy. Can you now describe it? So by writing it down, you're giving it a name. So it starts with emotional awareness, then emotional literacy. Now, I'm a great believer that we're actually all our own best coach. And we actually, if we look in the mirror and we're honest with ourselves, we all know when we've had a fat day. We all know when we've overworked. We all know when we didn't get our work-life balance right. We didn't give the children enough time. We gave the children too much time. We didn't work any time or whatever.
Okay.
So by doing this, after 3 days, look back at all the emotions you've written down and see how many were negative and how many were positive.
Okay.
And just start to see the patterns in your life. And you'll find, most people find that they don't write down very many, and it's probably more negative than positive.
Okay.
Oh, you haven't done it, so goodness, I was so fed up with that. I was angry with that, and that roadworks really annoyed me.
I was just going to say traffic.
Yeah, traffic. Yeah,
traffic, definitely.
So we go into work having started late, got stuck in traffic. We arrive 10 minutes late for a meeting, so we're a bit annoyed, and we're taking all of this emotion into a meeting. And before you do this exercise, you never had any awareness. That was your arrival. People's first experience of you was, oh, Lynn's a bit fed up today, or Bob's a bit fed up, or whatever it is. And so that's the first thing. Awareness, then literacy. Then the key thing next is mastery, being able to move from one emotion to another. But without the first two, it's impossible to do the third, because you're kind of leaving it to chance. And cheer up's not the answer to everything. Well, I must cheer up. That's not emotional mastery. That's just copping out. Because cheer up might not be the right answer. Being concerned might be the right answer. Being focused, being giggly, who knows? So is that sort of clear?
Very clear. Yeah.
Right. That's my first big thing to overcome the lazy brain is awareness, literacy, and mastery. My next thing is what I call practicing decompression and setting your intent. We ready for number 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Disney. I've never been to a Disney theme park, but apparently the first Disney theme park that was designed, they put the car park right by the theme park. And you'd think that makes sense, wouldn't you? That's
right, yeah.
Why wouldn't you? You want to sort of get out of the car, get straight in, get on with having fun. What they found is the parents and kids, they've been on a 3-hour car journey getting there. The kids are in the back of their car going, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Mum, Dad, I'm hungry. Or I need to go to the loo. And
Oh, yeah. Which is a very common one, especially when you're on the motorway.
Oh, of course, you're on the motorway and suddenly you've got to pull over the hard shoulder and then I don't want to now.
Very common.
And so you arrive at the theme park, get out of your car, frustrated, boiling with fury, anxiety, all that kind of stuff, and you take those emotions into the theme park. And Disney recognized this, and they thought, well, actually, that was a mistake building the car. I mean, it sounds like the best thing to do because it's convenient. But what you're doing is you're taking all that negative emotion from people having had a long, hot journey, the air conditioning's broken, or whatever. And you're taking all that negative emotion into the theme park. And that's not what they wanted.
Of course, yeah.
So what they did when they designed the subsequent ones is they built a gap. So the car park is now a 10-minute walk away.
Well thought through.
Well thought through. So when you arrive, you're forced to go for a little bit of a walk over a stream, flowing water.
Releasing your emotions.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's a model of Pluto or Mickey Mouse or whatever. And you, that wasn't so bad, was it? Right, now let's go and enjoy ourselves. And he called that decompression. And I think that's a genius concept. How often, and they're be honest here, when you go from meeting to meeting to meeting, do you literally just go through them like a tsunami?
Sometimes you have to.
Who says you have to?
Nobody says it, but obviously if you're going from meeting to meeting, it's something which is just going to be done and noted.
That's the lazy brain. That's what everybody assumes.
Yeah.
You could easily say, I'm going to be 2 minutes late, I just need to go and use the bathroom. And you could just take 2 minutes to just breathe, get hold of your physiology. I mean, there's a whole section on breathing and optimal breathing techniques, which you could just go onto YouTube, but you've got to breathe anyway. But just reset your physiology, decompress for 2 minutes, let go of the emotions of the meeting you've just been in, and stop and think, right, before I go into this next meeting, what's the intent of it? What's the intent of this meeting? So often, I mean, there's this, again, lazy brain paradox that all meetings last an hour. Why? How many meetings have you been in? We thought, well, we could have done that in 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, quite regular.
No, but it's our lazy brain. We set an hour because I'll see you for an hour, and if we've covered in half an hour, we'll talk about the cricket or Lewis Hamilton, the Formula One, or Djokovic at Wimbledon. We'll pad it out. You don't need to. You see?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. You see. Yeah.
But how many of us pad it out because here at the chamber we value time so much? If it's an hour's meeting, and we've done it in half an hour, we would just all then go straight back to our desks and carry on. Well,
that's good.
Doing so. I think it's time value. In this.
That is good. I mean, but it's rarely done like that. But I think you should punctuate every meeting with a gap of decompression for a couple of minutes and think, what's the intent of the next meeting? Because so often someone comes flying in, oh, you wouldn't believe what I've just been listening to. Oh my God. And that's not a way to start the next meeting. So we've got the margin down the side about awareness, literacy and mastery. We then have this building in deliberately a moment of decompression and setting our intent. And then lastly, it's deciding what our own North Star is, our own sort of purpose, if you like. Now that's quite a big subject, but I'm going to make it dead easy. I said at the beginning that how many of us really realize our potential, how many of us are really productive, how many of us bring our best to work. And I would argue for the vast majority of us, we don't really. That'd be hard to refute.
Okay.
But so because I was a failure at school, I failed I failed all my O levels on my first attempt. I only got 4 on the second attempt. No, I got no A levels. I've got 2 degrees now. I went the long way around, but I was washed up failure of the school system. I came good, I hasten to add. But when I decided to get educated, and I've been working in a factory for 3 years at this point, and I went back to college and I did all that stuff, it was because I chose to. I had what psychologists call a shift experience. I had decided that the route I was taking was not a good one. No qualifications. I worked in High Wycombe as a computer operator when computers were big, bulky things, and that was going nowhere. I didn't read any books. And after 3 years of this, I thought, I'm going to go back to college. I'm going to learn again. And I did fine. But that was a conscious choice. And so I decided to set a new course, sort of a new North Star, a new purpose. And my purpose and North Star at that point was to get a credible university education. And now that wasn't going to happen by fluke or by mistake. I had to do that. Now, I then worked in the city and for various reasons that went fine. I had, wife, 2 kids, ended divorce, all that sort of thing. the point is, I had another, you might say it was a midlife crisis. This sounds like a midlife crisis, Jez. I can hear your brain saying.
Okay.
And possibly it is. And possibly we should encourage crisis. We should all have mini crisis and check in and see if we're really achieving what we crisis maybe is a good thing. I hadn't thought about that until now. But I can remember I was in the office and I thought, I need to reset things yet again. And so this is your next exercise, Lorinda.
Okay.
Get a sheet of A4 paper,
Okay.
and along the middle,
Yeah.
draw a line. So this sheet of paper that you're looking at has two halves, has a top half and a bottom half.
Okay.
In the middle, on the line, in the middle of that piece of paper,
Yeah.
write the word me.
Okay.
Now, in the bottom half of that page,
Yeah.
just write a heading past.
Past.
That's your past, yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
And in the top half of the page, write future. Now, this is not something to share. This is something for you to do one day by yourself.
Okay.
And in the past, put everything that's true about you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The things you love about you, the things you don't, So I put down things like, I like keeping fit, I like sport, I like teaching, I like people. I hated writing big investment documents, spreadsheets, PowerPoints. I hated wasteful meetings. I hated the politics of business. I hated rudeness, aggression, bullying at work. I hated all these sort of behavioral stuff, which I just thought was just terrible and demotivating. And I had lots of good things I loved. I love coaching sport. I love seeing people do well. I love seeing people represent their country and people flourish. So that was all in the past, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
So then in the top half of the page, now, on the basis that you are the author of your own destiny, on the top half of the page, the future bit,
Yeah.
take the bits of the past you want to keep. So I wanted to keep the sport and the learning and the teaching bit. So I picked out the bits I wanted and brought them to the top.
Okay.
And I left the bits at the bottom behind. And then I added new things I wanted to add to the top. In
your list?
Yeah, in my list. So,
No.
so in a sense, I was designing my own future. And I had deliberately committed on paper with ink, the bits of my past I wanted to leave behind.
Okay.
Now, some things you can change and some things you can't change. For example, one of the things I wrote that I hated was my commute. I hated commuting into town. I couldn't change that overnight, and one piece of paper wasn't going to resolve that. But what I could do, is that your personal helicopter coming to get?
I've got no.
Oh, it's a car. It's not a helicopter.
No, I think it's roadworks.
Oh, that's not good. So what I couldn't do was change certain things. I couldn't change my commute short term, but what I could do is find an antidote for it. So I'm going back quite a long time, and I bought a portable CD player. Now your iPhone would do it. And I started listening to comedy shows and educational. So I changed my experience of my commute. I couldn't change my commute. So things I could stop, I just stopped. Things I could find an antidote to, I found an antidote to. And new things I could bring into my future, I added. And within about 3 months, I resigned from that job. I didn't know
Was it a long commute? Was it?
Yeah, it was about just under 2 hours.
Okay.
It was into the city. But having done this exercise, I then thought, I'm just living a lie. I can't fill my day with so many toxic things I don't like. And so I jacked it all in. Okay. Threw myself on the pile of hope. And I started consulting and doing consultancy work and picking bits of work I found stimulating, enjoyable, and where I thought I could add more value. And so this went along for quite some time. And then one day I was doing consulting work for Tesco, and this guy said, you should meet Ram Ragban. And he's my co-founder of Riddlebox. We met nearly 8 years ago. And I met a kindred spirit whose journey was not dissimilar. It was not quite the same, but not dissimilar. But it was punctuated with all the same sort of frustrations and paradoxes and disillusionment. And so that's why we formed I mean, we do a lot more than just the lazy brain. The lazy brain is really, it's really a fun way of making people wake up and realize they're more than they've become. You know, that, you know, you're not going to be an Olympic gold medalist, but you know what? You can be a bit better. You know, you may not summit Everest, but you know what? You could go for a decent walk. You may not be a size 0 model, but you know, one doesn't have to be. You know, one can cut out the cigarettes and the donuts, and you don't have to sort of put yourself in the fast lane to a cardiac arrest.
That's right.
You know, and it's doing things which are achievable. And if we could get everybody to just enjoy work and be a tiny bit more productive, the net impact globally would be massive.
I think that's a good point. I think it's very, very important you enjoy what you do.
Yeah, but it's not going to be amazing. You're going to have bad days. It's not. But
it comes down to overcoming your lazy brain.
Exactly. And when you realize how much of your day is punctuated by lazy emotions just because you're used to putting up with it, well, don't change it. Change your environment. You are the author of your own destiny. I know I've said that already, but
it's true.
And one of the great exercises Ram and I do, which sounds very cruel, but it's not, is if we were doing work with a team, we often say, write down as a team who in this team most lives the values of the organization, the positive values of the organization. I guarantee if you're a team of, let's say, 12,
okay,
they'll all write the same name. Oh, it's Narinda. Narinda always turns up with a happy face, and nearly always, the vast majority, it'll be the same person. Then you get them to say, right, think about the person in this room who least lives the values of the organization. And they go very, very awkward. And say, I would never be so cruel as to ask you to write that name down. That'd be massively unfair. But ask yourself, what have you done to help that person? What have you done to go out of your way when no one's looking, put your arm around and say, look, you know, Bob, Joe, whatever, you seem to be having a bit of a rough time. You're not quite into it. Is there something I can do to help? And this is the thing, if we all take more emotional responsibility, not just for ourselves, it starts for ourselves, but for those around us. Right. And this isn't just tree huggy. This is, I mean, I think for me personally, one of the most motivating things to be a part of is a team that's, you know, bonded together. It's got this sort of, you know, it feels like it's going in the right direction. It feels like it's getting better around here. It doesn't have to be brilliant, but you feel like, you know what, this week was better than last week. We may not be dragon slayers, but you know, it is getting better. The direction of travel is towards that collective true north. That's very, very motivating.
That's right. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk to.
Exactly. And it's just, if we can take more emotional responsibility, firstly for ourselves and then for those around us in a grown up kind of way, then we will all be more productive. You know, when the tide comes in, all the ships go up.
Remember, if you've got any questions for us today.
Any questions, anybody?
Okay. Fine. Should we move over to the next slide?
I think we're nearly there. Okay. Well, I've actually talked about it a lot to some extent. We are into measuring emotions. Now, why is that? Well, it's not just about the lazy brain. Our basic thesis is how you feel is more important than how you think. And that if you ask someone how they think, you know, it doesn't really get to what's driving their behaviors and their patterns, if you like. So you need to know how people feel. And that's what we specialize in. We believe we're in the experience economy. That there was the agricultural economy, the industrial economy, now we're in the experience economy. Have you noticed how many adverts now don't talk about the products and features of what they're advertising? They just try and create an emotion. Lloyd's Bank with the black horse. Where's any mention of banking there? The famous Christmas adverts for Waitrose. It was Infinity Car. The punchline at the end is the only way to truly measure a car is how it makes you feel. Advertisers are getting their heads around this, that actually how you feel about something, you're more likely to change, you're more likely to you'll only change and overcome your lazy brain if it's driven by an emotion. If you're inspired or feel to be different, you will be. So looking in the mirror every day and going, every day and everywhere I'm getting better and better isn't going to cut it. You need to feel it. And so that's what we do. we create the RBX index. So we measure the experience we measure customer experience, leadership experience, employee experience. But the key thing about the RBX index is it's an internationally recognized number. Now, I bet you there's a listener or two who will be saying, oh, we already do that. We do an engagement score. We do an engagement survey. They're not the same thing. When you ask how someone's experience, you're asking how they feel, so you're tapping into the subconscious. So when we come up with a score, for example, in healthcare, the experience average is 46. The highest sector score is hospitality at 76. And you ask people about their engagement, it's normally like 80, 89 or 92. It's just not true. I don't know about you, my life isn't 92% good.
Do you think anyone's is?
So when we come up with our score, it means something. Okay. Has emotional and academic validity, and it's like longitude and latitude. You can navigate the globe. Greenwich Mean Time, you understand where you are in time zones. So
we've got a question, yeah. It says, can you say a bit more about finding your North Star, please?
Your North Star is essentially what's the meaning of you? What's your purpose? Now, we've known for years that the highest performing teams or individuals have a very clear purpose. What's interesting is we're on television now is the 50th anniversary of men landing on the moon. And it was Kennedy in 1960 who said, we're going to land a man on the moon and return him safely with technology that hasn't yet been invented. And we're going to do it within 10 years. And they did it in 9. Now that purpose galvanized the whole of NASA. The most successful maternity ward in the country. The purpose is so clear, even the hospital cat knows it. To deliver a healthy baby in a mother's arms within 12 hours. So our North Star is really what will drive us emotionally. What is the me I want to become? If you've got a dog, for example, wouldn't you want to be the person your dog thinks you are? Dogs love you adoringly. So it's really probably the best way I can describe this is if I walk along a beach and I see a beach bum, and I go up to the beach bum and I say, "Hello, beach bum," and he goes, "Hello, Jones." I get into conversations. You know what? I could have been a doctor. I could have been a judge. I get so angry because why are you being a beach bum then? Now, if you go across the same beach and meet the beach bum and say, "Hello," he goes, "Hello, Jez. How are you doing?" "I'm fine. I love being a beach bum. I'm the best beach bum in the world. I know every cove, every bit of driftwood." It's enthusiastic. He loves what he's doing. You have to love your choices. For me, he's a king. It's not that we all have to be super rich or super famous, but we have to be what we want to be. And so that is it's the looking the man in the mirror and the person looking back. Do you want to be that person?
See, so just are you saying that North Star and purpose, they are one and the same?
Yes.
So would that mean it's not only about the what, it's also why you want to do that, which connects it back to what you're saying about choice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you used to talk about the the Leander Club.
Yeah, well, at Leander, where I'm one of the coaches there, the purpose of Leander is you're either going to row for Great Britain or help somebody row for Great Britain. It's as simple as that. It's a 7-to-1 ratio of 7 athletes make 1 full-time GB athlete. So it's really identifying our ambition, the impact we want to have on the world, and how we want to leave it. Do we want to leave it in a better place than we found it, or a worse place?
So if you talk about North Star, in that case, from a practical point of view, this is probably the house on the hill.
Yeah.
And then it's the things that you do
to get there,
which means you need to actually overcome the patterns that are already there. Exactly. You break that, and you do that by exercising your free will and the choices that you make.
Yes. If you were to draw a picture of yourself in 5 years' time, what would it look like?
Younger?
More hair. No, but that's the thing. If you drew a picture of yourself in 5 years' time, what would it look like? And if you explain it then to somebody else how you got there, what did you do to achieve that picture?
But then people would also say there are multiple purposes
Yeah, I agree
for
with
an
that.
individual. So what is that? Do you have one North Star which drives you, or is it a culmination of multiple things that allows you to create that North Star?
I don't think it's ever one thing. I mean, I want to be a better dad. I want to be a good husband. I also want to be a good business partner. But, you know, the picture of me would be one where I could honestly say that I could look at my emotional audit with my kids and say, yeah, I did good by them. I can look at business and say my intent was very positive, and I may not have been perfect every day, but my intent stood up to scrutiny. And when it comes to my wife, that yeah, I was a good partner, I was considerate. You know, it's a whole host of things. It's not because the danger is if you get into a reductionist philosophy, I want to be rich, or so I want to be famous. Well, I could go into John Lewis with a machine gun, shoot loads of people. I'd be very, very famous, but it wouldn't be the right sort of fame. You know, and you could give up everything for your children. You think you've given up everything for them, but actually you sacrifice a lot of other things.
Right.
You know, I once had this argument with an ex-girlfriend, probably my next girlfriend, and I said to her, you've got a child,
I do, yeah.
and I said to her, our relationship should be the most important relationship in your life. I said, no, my children are most important. I said, no, that's not healthy. I said, your children should be the most important people in your life, but not the most important relationship. So if they were drowning and I was drowning, you'd save them before me. But if you make them the most important relationship in your life, you're teaching them that they cannot go and get their own healthy relationship. You should be modeling to them that they can then go and find their own Prince Charming,
right.
their own princess. And as you model that, you're suffocating their growth. So you see what I mean? It's not a straightforward answer. And sometimes ignorant love can be more damaging than a little bit of, bit of a disconnect.
So you mentioned about that. Then how does that connect with RBX index?
It doesn't really. That's about, I'm talking about our individual North Star. The RBX, so it's not quite the same thing. The RBX index is like an experience, a moment in time, how we are with each other and how we're experiencing the world through the lens of a leader or through the lens of a customer or through the lens of a teammate.
Would it not also help raise the emotional awareness? Because you talk about emotions and you talked about lazy brains and the emotions. So is this...
I mean, there is the biggest positive impact, I think, that the RBX index does is it changes the narrative that people uses. We can healthily and legitimately talk about how we feel, and that this isn't some illusion. It's something we can measure. And when you change the narrative, then I think that's really, really important. We start to shift our lazy brain and how we talk to each other, and now actually take an interest in each other. I think the best way to do this is if you contact me, and my email address is on there somewhere. In fact, it's on the next slide.
The end, yeah.
Yep. Do a free trial. Have a go. See the impact for yourself. So one thing talking about something, the most important thing is to experience it. And that's the point. So have an experience of what we're doing at Riddlebox. And send me an email and we'll set it up. So to conclude, I just realized we're running out of time. You need to take responsibility for our own emotions. We can't blame others. We talked about the North Star. So look, there we are, riddlebox.co.uk, jeremy@riddlebox.co.uk. Drop me a line and I will set you up with a free trial and experience what we're about.
Any questions? Please do feel free to send them through. We've got a few minutes left for before this webinar ends. So, Jeremy, have you got anything else to
No,
say?
I think I've said my bit. Narinder, thank you very much for hosting us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for coming into our offices today and hosting this webinar. If you've got any questions, please do email Jeremy. That's his contact details there. There's also contact details for myself. As I mentioned, I'm one of the account managers here at the Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. And thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.